this rookie, stepped into the Hunter qualification trials and absolutely shattered expectations. The aftermath left the world's elite S-rankers shook. Why? Because he dismantled the industry's hottest rising star with zero weapons, just raw brutal hand-to-hand combat. Jaws dropped across the judges' panel. Even the apex predator of an S-rank guild felt a primal itch to jump in the ring and personally test this rookie's limits. But here is the kicker: they had no clue. Hyukun had grinded for 80 long years, waging war in another dimension. As the undefeated spear god, he had literally slaughtered that realm's demon king with his bare hands. But after the victory lap, total burnout hit, so Hyukun begged the goddess for a favor. He wanted to keep his XP and memories, but return to Earth. The goddess gave him the green light. Catch was his original body was long gone, so she shoved his soul into a new vessel. In a heartbeat, a blinding pillar of light slammed into Hyukun. Turns out this new vessel was a body literally seconds away from flatlining. Still, the goddess bet on him starting fresh. When Hyukun finally snapped his eyes open, he was finally back on terra firma. That hellscape dimension had dragged him through the mud, but now back on Earth, he realized he was inhabiting a scrawny teenage boy. He cranked the kitchen faucet, mesmerized by the crystal-clear poison. Free water, one click and fire spark to life. That is real magic. Those arrogant mages back in the other world could go kick rocks. Priorities though. This world still had fried chicken cutlets. The crispy perfection was so beautiful, it brought actual tears to his eyes. This was the taste of salvation. For 80 years of non-stop bloodshed, he had not tasted a single decent meal. Finally, the NPC life he dreamed of. But Hyukun was too distracted to notice the ominous crimson glow pulsating outside his window. He hopped in the shower for a long, steamy scrub, although he felt totally glitched out. In this modern setting, he knew paradise was close. Then, out of nowhere, a nightmarish face pressed against the glass. It scared the soul out of him. How the hell did a creature like that exist on Earth? Seconds later, an emergency siren blared behind him. Code red: a corrosion rift had ripped open. Right in his apartment complex. The speaker screamed for residents to hit the underground bunkers. Immediately, Hyukun was clueless. What even is a corrosion rift? He was flying blind, but what he saw next sent a chill down his spine. A swarm of humanoid monstrosities were plastered all over his window. Like bugs, their razor-sharp talons were seconds away from shattering the glass. Right as the barrier gave way, Hyukun spun on his heel and booked it. The situation was crystal clear. This was not the Earth from his memories, and he needed a tutorial update fast. These freaks looked way too similar to the nightmares he fought in the other dimension. Hyukun hugged the wall near the window frame, dodging their vision cone. He waited for them to pass, then vaulted out the window without blinking. Safest bet: follow the loudspeaker's advice and sprint for the bunker. That is when he spotted a kid standing in the chaos. He moved to scoop the boy up, but then he paused. This kid was actually gearing up to charge back at the monsters. He looked like a baby, but his eyes were locked in. The kid started yapping about slaying beasts and asked Hyukun to party up. Hyukun was totally thrown off. Our Gen Z kids just built different. Through this pint-sized warrior, Hyukun got the lore dump. Earth has been in survival mode for 13 years. Corrosion rifts are basically spawn points for monsters, and they appear completely RNG. No warning, no pattern. This info tilted Hyukun hard. He ground through 80 years of hell, just to return to another hell. He casually quizzed the kid, asking who held the title for Earth's strongest hunter. The kid didn't stutter. Lee Sung-yoon. She is the ace of the Ganabi Guild, top 10 worldwide. She swings a great sword the size of a truck, and was currently soloing a rift in Suwon. But even with super hunters existing, the concept of civilians fighting mobs still felt like a fever dream to Hyukun. Suddenly he slapped a hand over the kid's mouth. Quiet. Hostiles incoming. He scanned ahead. 5 ugly mugs staring them down. But Hyukun's veteran instincts pinged a 6th one. In stealth, luckily, this scrawny vessel wasn't completely useless. It packed superhuman specs, enough to clear the trash mobs. The problem: protecting the NPC kid while in combat. But ditching him wasn't on the table, as Hyukun calculated his next move. A nostalgic buzz hit his nerves. The air rippled with faint blue energy mana. In that split second he knew for a fact, the physics here were identical to the battlefield he used to rule. And then whoosh, one of the beasts instantly erupts into a pillar of fire. Hyukun's doing. Sure, the mana he stockpiled for 20 years is toast. But as long as the air breathes magic, he's back in business. He taps into the paradox flame, a power seared into his very soul. Okay, the heat is a little underwhelming compared to his prime, but for these small fry creeps, it's overkill. The kid's jaw hits the floor. Whoa, didn't know you had moves like that. Hype taking over. The brat actually wins up to charge in and steal the kill. Hyukun just stares dumbfounded. The monsters hadn't even aggroed yet. Why poke the bear? But thanks to the kid's Leroy Jenkins moment, he instantly becomes target number one. Pure terror washes over the boy's face as reality sets in. Hyukun snags the kid's arm just in time. Give me the stick, he signals, eyes locked on the threat. He needs a weapon stat. 3 monsters scream toward them, closing the gap fast. The second that would hits Hyukun's palm. The vibe shifts, his eyes go cold. A sharp slice tears the air as he swings. Instantaneously, 3 monsters are cleaved clean in half at the waist. In that split second, the spear god is back in the building. The kid, he's forgotten how to breathe. To the boy, Hyukun isn't some rando anymore. He's gotta be a pro hunter, smuffing in the newbie zone. But internally Hyukun is fuming. He fought hard for a chill, peaceful life, and it's already gone sideways. Wearing a dun with this face, Hyukun drags the kid to the underground bunker. The mom spots her son and floods Hyukun with thank yous, realizing he's the savior. Then Hyukun clocks her fit. Designer threads, high-end fabric. He freezes, so the kid comes from money. That explains the arrogance. Suddenly the whole building quakes, violently crash. A massive monster bulldozes right through the entrance, forcing its way inside. Pandemonium breaks out. Everyone scatters like roaches, but Hyukun, he's planted like a tree. The kid screams back, run. Even you can't solo that thing. Hyukun doesn't flinch. He thought he returned to the normal world. But nope, this place is just as messed up as the other dimension. He turns to the rich kid, if you're loaded, why play hero? Go hide in a mansion and live easy. The kid's expression darkens. My dad was killed back then. His family hid in a shelter too. But the monsters slaughtered his father anyway. That's when the kid learned the hard way. Safety is a lie. That's why he swore to become a hunter, to be the absolute strongest, to wipe every corrosion rift off the map. Sounds crazy, right? Before he can ramble on, Hyukun cuts him off. With a calm, knowing smile, he drops a truth bomb. You'll make a solid hunter, kid. But sadly, saving the world isn't in your cards. The mom frantically yanks the boy away, screaming at him to move. Boom. A thunderous explosion rocks the room. The kid whips around that unstoppable monster, dead, smashed by Hyukun with one hand. Why did Hyukun say the kid couldn't save the world? Simple, that position is filled, and Hyukun's got the resume for it. Monster handled. Hyukun heads home to catch up on current events. Then the real horror strikes. His bank account, 3,001. That's barely lunch money. The body's original owner was a logistics corporate slave, until the company went belly up thanks to the rifts. Just as Hyukun starts stressing about survival, a notification pops up on his phone. Hunter recruitment bingo. Fast forward to the next day. The Hunter Association is buzzing. It's draft day, baby. Scouts are prowling the floor, hungry to sign the next big rookie to their guilds. One scout scoffs, thinking this year's crop is nothing but NPC energy. Just a bunch of extras. But then the atmosphere shifts. One of the top 10 hunters worldwide walks in. Lee Soo-yoon. The crowd goes wild. This is a celebrity sighting, usually reserved for HD screens, and she's here in the flesh. Whispers fly, she must be here for Han Song-ah, the electric-type prodigy from the academy. Reality check, So-yoon doesn't care. She hasn't even looked at Song-ah twice. To her, the rookie is just a walking battery pack. Her colleague suggests Seong-ah might have uses, but the guy in the shades shuts it down. Academy stars usually choke when the real blood starts spilling. So Yun smirks. Now that is a language she speaks. She flicked a hard candy at her colleague, like a treat for a good dog. Praise sure, but unspoken simulation drills, and the blood and guts of real combat. 2 different worlds for these academy kids, raised on safety nets and controlled spars. Reality was about to hit like a freight train. Adapting to the chaos takes time they don't have, and Han Seong-ah wasn't immune to that rule. The arena below was buzzing for the next bout. Lee Se-in leaned forward, eyes sharp. hungry to find a diamond in the rough. Come on rookies, give me a show worth watching. The announcer, however, choked on his words the second he pulled up the file. A civilian, the disbelief was audible. This guy hadn't even stepped foot inside the Hunter Academy down in the pit. Hyukon zipped his combat suit tight. His grip tightened around the standard issue weapon provided by the association. The announcer kept roasting him over the PA system, questioning the sanity of a nobody, walking onto the stage but stepping into the light. Now it's contestant Hyukon. Honestly, the name still felt foreign on his tongue. The rules were straightforward enough. Use the nerfed association weapons. No killing blows, but Hyukon wasn't here for sport. He needed this hunter exam as his golden ticket to higher clearance levels. Opposite him stood a blonde pretty boy, smirking like he owned the place, clearly dismissing Hyukon as trash. The referee's hand chopped down. Fight on instantly. The blonde kid launched himself forward, salivating at the chance to crush a scrub who couldn't even manifest mana. Hakan didn't even flinch. His expression was dead calm. To him, this kid was nothing but a walking bullseye. Thud. Hogan drove his spear straight into the concrete floor. Then he vanished. The blonde kid blinked, his brain short-circuiting. Where did he go? A speed type. The thought barely formed before he felt a cold presence right behind his neck. Your form is garbage, Hyukon whispered. I don't need a weapon to dismantle you. Before the kid could turn, a fist buried itself in his gut, hitting the sweet spot that makes you want to puke up. Last night's dinner. The kid buckled, knees giving out, but Hogan grabbed him, yanking him back upright. Crack. A brutal uppercut shattered the guy's jaw. The blonde youth, radiating arrogance just seconds ago, was now out cold on his feet. Hyukon actually frowned. He knew the kid was weak, but this fragile, like glass, good thing he went bare knuckle. If he'd used the spear, the kid would be a shish kebab right now. Hyukon exhaled, relaxing his stance. Just a rookie, barely worth the sweat. Definitely not the standard he expected. Up in the stands, Lee Se-eun was frozen. What is he? She frantically scrolled through Hyukon's data. A logistics employee, a warehouse guy. Her colleague stammered. Something about low mana reserves. And power like that needs decades to build up. Maybe he just got lucky. The excuse earned him a cold shut-it from Lee Se-eun. And another piece of candy flicked at his forehead. Luck. No, her gut told her. This guy was actively suppressing his mana to stay off the radar. Back in the ring, Hyukon rolled his neck a bit stiff. If he wanted to make a statement, he needed to end this with zero ambiguity. In a blur, he was already standing next to the teetering blonde. He raised a fist, voice terrifyingly calm. Relax. This won't kill you. The blonde kid's eyes widened in pure terror, blubbering, please, for mercy. Wham. One tap, lights out. The kid hit the floor. The arena exploded into whispers among the scouts, while everyone else argued over stats. Lee Se-eun made the call. She was going to test this wild card herself. Her partner blinked. Where are you going? Straight to the top, she said, heading for the association president's box. I need a favor. Meanwhile, Hoon was on a rampage. It didn't matter who they threw at him. The result was a carbon copy. Nobody lasted 3 moves. Hyukon was starting to get annoyed. What was the academy teaching these kids? How do you mass-produce fighters this soft? Finally, the fodder cleared and a real challenger stepped up. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Murmurs rippled through the stands. It was Han Song-ah. The crowd leaned in, desperate to see if the elite candidate could derail this mysterious nobody's win streak. Hyukon gave her a once-over. His interest peaked finally. She was radiating the thickest mana he'd felt all day. Han Song-ah didn't mince words. You rode luck this far, the ride ends here. Hyukon suppressed a sneer. Do they teach those cheesy one-liners in the textbook? Slowly she drew her blade. Her eyes flared with golden light. You might be powerless, but don't expect me to hold back. That actually made Hyukon pause. Powerless. If he used his actual abilities, she'd be in the ICU right now. Han Song-ah took a deep breath, dropping into a combat crouch. Mana surged, coalescing around her grip. Golden lightning crackled down the steel, the blade humming with dangerous energy. Hooken's curiosity sparked, but in a split second Han Song-ah blurred into motion, an explosion of teal energy trailing in her wake. But that ultra-charged slash she'd spent forever prepping is sliced through nothing but empty air, and Hooken had simply vaulted skyward. Song-ah froze, her brain short-circuiting. He dodged it. He actually evaded my lightning draw slash, just by jumping off the air. Hyukon analyzed the tech. She was charging the sheath and blade with electricity, generating a magnetic field to supercharge the draw speed. Basically, she turned her katana into a literal railgun, who can touch down with a heavy thud. Technique-wise, that's top tier. He admitted, but you blew the timing. You're way too thirsty for speed. Her fatal glitch, that magnetic rail, locked her attack onto a fixed path. For maximum acceleration, it doesn't matter how fast it hits. If your opponent knows exactly where it's going, nobody's face tanking that. Sanga's ego shattered. Total fluke. She lied to herself. She gripped her hilt again. She went feral. I don't even need that ULT to crush a nobody like you. But reality had other plans. He danced around her strikes, like she was moving in slow mo. Moron who can scoffed. I dodged your light speed slash. You think this basic stuff is gonna land? That snapped her song. I saw red logic completely leaving the chat. Blinded by fury, she wound up for a nuke. Hyukon spotted the danger instantly. She was compressing mana way past her red line. One more second and she'd blow her own arms off. Zip. Hyukon materialized right in her face. Nice hustle, but we're done. Then with zero chill, he smirked. Raise your left hand if this stings. Wham! His fist buried itself deep into her gut. He didn't even use full power, but she gagged, nearly puking on the spot. Hukong didn't let up, unleashing a rapid-fire combo, pummeling her mug without mercy. That crack, a heavy haymaker connected, and Xionghua's world went dark. Thud! The Academy's golden girl hit the deck. Not a winner, just another victim. The arena went dead silent. He'd completely dismantled an elite student. Since Hyukon looked like a total NPC, the crowd started coping, thinking Song-ah was just a glass cannon who skipped leg day. Suddenly Hyukon sensed a twitch behind him. He braced for round two, but when he spun around, she was trembling, slowly lifting her left hand. She was totally concussed. Barely vertical. Hyukon actually laughed. He jokingly told her to tap out, and she literally did it. Classic honor student. Just then a suit rushed the referee. The guy whispered something sketchy, and the ref's face went grim. The mic crackled. Change of plans. Winner Hyukon. Take 5, rest up. Hyukon frowned. Rest. The fight's over. Why do I need to recharge? The ref dropped the bomb. Up next, Hyukon enters a special match against an active duty pro hunter, authorized directly by the association president. As a name flashed on the jumbo screen. The crowd lost their absolute minds. Hyukon squinted. A vet. Is this some kind of stress test? Not his first rodeo, even across dimensions. Screech steel dragged ominously across the concrete. You Hyukon, the woman asked.
I'm Lee Sayun.
Let's see what else you're keeping up your sleeve. Her stare was heavy enough to crush bones. You're too big for this kiddie pool. Wanna go around with me? You can bail if you're scared. I know it's abrupt. Hyukon smirked bitterly as he clocked her identity. It was her, that top 10 hunter the kid hyped up earlier. And that pressure, it wasn't for show. She was a legit apex predator. A survivor of hellish war zones. With his current stats, even with a spear, a head-on clash was suicide. But for some reason Hyukon couldn't stop grinning. You wanna test me? Bring it. The ref blinked. Don't you need a break? Saiyan caught the fire in his eyes. Pure warrior instinct. She smiled. We're cut from the same cloth, aren't we? Hyukon grinned back, electricity racing through his veins. Time to find out if the so-called strongest can actually earn my respect. Boom! They vanish into a blur of violence. The crowd is absolutely shook. Silence falls over the stands. Even the ref is dripping sweat, stuttering, completely at a loss for words. Hyukon parries another heavy strike from Lee Saiyan. But let's be real, he is not having a good time. He can feel the sheer weight of her power rattling his bones. This woman is a beast. She's packing enough raw strength to humble any male hunter alive. Desperate for breathing room, Hyukon snaps his wrist, spinning his spear like a propeller. To deflect her onslaught, he pours every ounce of grit into that collision, shoving Lee Sayun back one heavy step at a time. But look at her face, stone cold. She's barely breaking a sweat, still toying with him, keeping her true nukes in reserve. Meanwhile, Hyukon's speed is tanking hard. Going toe-to-toe with an S rank is taking its toll. Hyukon looks wrecked. It's not that he can't see the gaps in her defense. His body just can't keep up with the killer instincts, forged in the fires of endless war. But Lee Sayun, she is absolutely loving this. It's been ages since she found a sparring partner. This legit sure. The power gap is massive, but the guy is undeniably tough. She wants to keep the dance going, but she can tell his tank is hitting empty. She steps in nodding with genuine respect. Not bad, you've got skills. I gave you 5 minutes tops. You lasted 30, but she doesn't let the compliment sit, launching herself at him since you're gassed. Let me do you a favor, nap time. Hyukon's knuckles turn white on his spear. He's tapped out 0 mana in the tank, and the air around him is dry. He exhales, slowly icing his nerves. He didn't want to play this card, but he's out of options. He leans back, laser-focused, waiting for the impact. His eyes track every micro-movement. The second she slips up, boom. Paradox flame, the black fire erupts. And for a split second Saiyan looks rattled. But she doesn't bail. She slashes right through the inferno, splitting the attack in half. Hyukon realizes the hit didn't land and scrambles back, creating massive distance. A smirk creeps onto Saiyan's face. That combo should have finished him, yet somehow he's still standing. And that dark aura, she asks, intrigued. What's the deal? You tried to hit me with it, right? My sword cut right through it. Hyukon keeps his cool. That is the paradox flame. My ultimate wild card back in the other realm. This was my bread and butter. The one power I trusted with my life. It's not normal fire, that's why my gear isn't ash. It doesn't burn physical stuff. It burns abstract concepts. Right now I can't torch the heavy stuff, like identity or memories. Then Hyukin explodes into motion. His spear screams through the air. The fuel he's burning, his own exhaustion. Saiyan's eyes go wide. Your speed. You're faster than before. Were you sandbagging this whole time? Hyukon doesn't waste breath. He glitches forward like a teleport, materializing right in her face. Spear slashing in a deadly arc. Seiyun is reeling. You recovered that fast. How is that even physically possible? Before the sentence ends, she flickers out of existence with a sharp whoosh. A heartbeat later, she pops back in right in front of him, matching his insane tempo. Steel crashes against steel in a deafening, high-speed blur. Sparks fly as the duel drags on, and Son starts sensing something is off. The mana in the air is glitching out, but the arena shields are stable, so there's only one answer. Hyukon's paradox flame. Just like normal fire creates heat by burning wood, this flame burns abstract concepts to release pure mana. Hyukon sparks the paradox flame with mana, and the flame burns his fatigue to create more mana. It's a broken self-sustaining loop. Fatigue becomes mana, mana fuels the fire. He's an endurance monster. The longer this goes, the weaker she gets, while he stays locked in a permanent state of half stamina, refusing to drop. Suddenly Saiyan flashes in, bringing her sword down like a guillotine clang. The arena floor shatters into dust, but Hyukon is already gone. She slowly lifts her head, her voice dropping an octave heavy with menace. Do you seriously think you can keep this up? Yu-chan emerged from the swirling dust cloud, looking like a desperate leech, attached to his opponent's limb. Grinning through the pain, he refused to let go. I plan to drag this into the deep end from the jump. You really think I'm gonna quit now? I've got gas in the tank, baby. Keep up, he taunted. Come on, spill it. Does a shameless hustler like me get the passing grade? Exhaustion finally flickered in Lee Saiyan's gaze. She'd been nerving herself the whole time, deliberately suppressing her power, to match Yu-chan's level if she'd gone all out. Game over in a single hit. Her voice remained deadpan. Nobody likes a guy who doesn't know his limits. Burn a tree and all you get is ash. Burnt ash can't catch fire twice. That's the paradox flame. When everything is reduced to dust, that residue is where the flame dies, and where your life ends. Lee Seiyun checked the chrono on her wrist. 4 hours and 17 minutes. Yu-chan was basically glued to the pavement. She peered down at him. You lasted longer than I thought. Want round 2? Yu-chan tapped out immediately. Let me go, I'm literally gonna expire if we keep this up. With his surrender, the match had a winner. Lee Seiyun. She reached into her coat, pulling out a lollipop. Her crew froze, eyes popping out of their heads. She flicked the candy at Yu-chan, a business card following close behind. Consider that your loot, my info's in there. Don't ghost me. Yu-chan inspected the card. Partner of Genoa LLC headhunter Lee Seiyun. She dropped her volume. We'll talk numbers later. Buzz me when you're alive again. 2.5 hours later, Yuchan crunched down on the lollipop, mesmerized by the smartphone in his hand. Back in his era, ID meant scribbles on paper. Now this brick handled biometrics gear, trading DMS and calls simultaneously. It felt like the magical comms from that other dimension he'd lived in. Suddenly a human mountain blocked his view. Your Hunter Yuchan camera adds 10 pounds huh. You look sharper in person. The guy was easily over 6'6". He extended a business card. Taeback Company Limited Lee Song-hyun. The giant didn't mince words. He wanted Yuchan on his roster. He swore that with the right XP, under his leadership Yuchan would be a superstar. Yuchan studied him. The guy didn't seem to be capping. But then Lisa Yun's face flashed in his mind. That subtle blush and the way she insisted he call her. Yuchan pocketed Lee Sung-hyun's card. Without looking at it, he was already booked mentally. At least gonna need a minute to chew on that, he said instead of raging.
Lee Sung-hyun busted a gut laughing. Relax.
Did you think I was gonna strong-arm you right here? Take your time. Yuchan thought the guy was chill. Until Lee Song-hyun clamped a heavy hand onto his shoulder. The pressure was real. Yuchan didn't flinch, locking eyes with a sharp, defiant glare. Think hard about this, Song-hyun warned, adding that he pegged Yuchan for a smart player. He turned and marched off, leaving Yuchan in the quiet aftermath. The sheer audacity of the guy, that aggression sealed the deal. Zero chance he was joining that guild. 10 minutes later, Yuchan was on the line with Lee Saeun. She pinged him a location instantly. Second floor Hunter Association HQ. Yuchan found the spot, the cabin. The staff greeted him with major hype energy. Guess Yuchan was trending now. Welcome to the cabin, she's been expecting you. Hearing his approach, Lisa Yoon spun around, waving him over. She looked shook that he pulled up so fast, asking if something went down. Yuchan gave her the TLDR. Some massive dude tried to recruit him. Lee Seun didn't even blink. That was definitely Lee Song-hun from Taebaek Guild. When that guy claims a prospect, other guilds usually fold. Yuchan let out a dry chuckle. So even your squad is scared of him. Not gonna lie, that's kind of a letdown. But Lee Seun flipped the script. She didn't try to sign him. Instead she asked, how do you feel about flying solo? I'm talking freelance work. No guild tag. Yuchan's ears perked up. Finally someone thinking outside the box. She was hinting that he could raid high-tier dungeons without wearing a guild's leash. She added, Yoon Hee-sung was just gonna offer you a grunt role. Anyway, damn. Yuchan slammed his hand on the table. Entry level, seriously. So break it down. What exactly is a partner hunter supposed to be? Lisa Yoon leaned in to drop the knowledge look. Guild hunters basically operate on a 3-tier hierarchy. You've got your rookies, your seniors, and the partner hunters, the first two groups. They're squad members, taking orders from a partner-level lead. Basically glorified salarymen punching a clock. But partners, that's the major leagues. They actually hold equity in the guild. Forget a steady paycheck. These guys rake in a cut of the pure net profits. They're practically co-owners running the show. The entire setup sounded less like a monster hunting squad, and more like a cutthroat law firm. Lisa Yoon explained that back in the day, guilds literally copy-pasted their structure from legal practices. But here's her take. Yuchan didn't need to play the corporate game, grinding from rookie to senior, just to get a seat at the table. Yuchan caught her drift immediately. If he could stack up enough clout and pull off feats nobody could ignore, the guilds would come begging for him. That realization made Lee Seun smirk with satisfaction. Talking to Yuchan felt effortless. No filters needed, but one thing threw him off. Her obsession with feeding him sweets. Since he sat down, she'd already tossed him 2 pieces of candy. But there was still a massive elephant in the room. Yuchan was a nobody, zero connections, zero resources. How was he supposed to snag elite contracts? Felt like climbing a mountain barefoot. Lisa Yoon brushed his worries aside, like they were nothing. She could handle the logistics, and get this, she'd do it pro bono. That only made Yuchan's guard go up. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So he cut to the chase. Why go this hard for a total stranger? Lee Seun slid her hand into a file folder. Down the road, when you're a legend, and guilds are fighting a war just to recruit you, I just want you to remember the woman who gave you your start to Yuchan. It sounded like she was banking a favor for a rainy day. Slowly she slid the dossier across the table. Take a look. Whether you sign on or walk away is 100% your call. Hyukan flipped the folder open and started scanning. It was a government commission from Incheon City, targeting Jeodong Island 2 years back. A raid team tried to seal a corrosion rift there. They failed miserably, leaving the whole area corrupted. Hyukan assumed the gig was to clear the rift itself. But nope, the job was strictly patrol duty. Monitor Jeodong Island, watch for new rifts and squash them on sight. The operation launched in a month. Upfront pay 5 million. One success bonus another 15 million. Hyukan tossed the papers back on the table. For a job that could literally kill you. The cash was peanuts, but Lisa Yun's eyes were sparkling. You think the pay sucks, then get stronger. Get famous once you're a big shot. The money chases you, not the other way around. In that moment she just needed one thing. A yes or a no. Hyukan took a beat, then spoke. Put it that way, and I'm in. I've never been one to back down from a limit test. 30 minutes later, 2 cars were tearing down the highway. Meanwhile, Lisa Yun was on a call with a shadow contact. She gave him the rundown on Hyukan. He's a civilian who swept a tournament. That forced weapon use while fighting barehanded. The guy on the line was unimpressed. Not bad. Lee Sayan burst out laughing. Oh, you are way off base. He went toe-to-toe with me for 4 straight hours. The voice on the phone cracked with shock. Are you serious? Wasn't that just because you were suppressing your power? Lee Sayan's laugh turned icy. I'm a veteran hunter with over 10 years in the field, surviving literal hellscapes. Logically, I should have wiped the floor with him. Instead, I was locked in a stalemate for hours. A terrifying thought crossed her mind. Even if she lived a second life, she might never run into a monster like Hukong again. After a heavy silence, the man replied, look, I don't care how much you hype him up. This mission needs hunters with actual field IQ. Skills are one thing, but can he function in a squad with veterans? Lisa Yun told him to chill. She'd already handpicked a seasoned pro to babysit Hyukan on the ground. The man dropped one last question. What happens if that kid eventually reaches your level? Lisa Yun smirked. You might not like hearing this, but you'll have to live with it. Her voice dropped an octave. If Hyukan hits my level, even the boss won't be able to touch him. Cut to 1 month prior. Hyukan had just ordered something online. The delivery guy was struggling. Sweating buckets. This thing weighs a ton. What the hell did this guy buy? After dumping the package at the door, the driver bolted. Silence returned to the hallway. Hyukan cracked the door and dragged the package inside. Moments later, a sleek black case sat on his table. His new toy with a satisfying mechanical click. Hyukan popped the latches. His eyes locked onto the weapon resting inside. Hyukan's gaze, locked in the craftsmanship, was insane. Almost too good to be true. No matter how he held it, the spear was a perfect match for his specs. Combat with this beast, piece of cake. And the loot didn't stop there. It came with a vial of glowing green liquid. A spirit potion. This is the lifeline hunters cling to when things go south. Packed with super concentrated energy. It's the ultimate clutch item when your mana hits 0. Here's the deal. Usually, mana control is like a water dispenser. Hunters sip it from the air, tank it inside their gut, and spit it out when it's fighting time. A spirit potion, it just speed runs that whole cycle. But Hyukan, he wasn't playing by the standard meta. He skipped the storage phase entirely, ripping mana straight from the atmosphere, and firing it off instantly. The perk was obvious, since he was pulling from the environment. He had literally infinite ammo, plus constantly channeling that raw power. Acted like a workout for his internal circuits, making them tougher with every cycle. But there was a catch. Until those mono channels fully leveled up, his output was capped. He couldn't unleash a massive burst in a split second. With no time to waste, he needed a backup battery. Hukong downed the potion in 1 gulp. 1 month of grinding like this, and he knew he'd hit his target. Stats cut to 1 month later. Yangjiang Island, Incheon. The assembly point was already packed. Hunters everywhere gearing up for the raid. Staff scanned his ID and boom. Assigned to Squad 8. He stood under the sign marked with a big number 8. Hyukan stood like a statue, while the rest of the lobby wouldn't stop yapping. This check is gonna be fat. When do we roll? Hyukan ignored the noise, meditating until he heard his name. He spun around. Hunter Han sang and wow, her hair was chopped short. Looked like she finally realized. Long hair is just a handle for monsters to grab. She walked up, clearly looking to squat up, Hyukon raised an eyebrow, places crawling with hunters. Why me? She didn't flinch. She saw his strength. She didn't just want a partner. She wanted a front row seat to learn his moves. Hokage was speechless. Great. Another backpack he'd have to carry. If you can keep up, try not to get left behind. Suddenly a staff member cut the mic. Squad 8, eyes on me, briefing starts now. We've got rookies, so I'm breaking down the basics. Vets, deal with it. Corrosion rifts are ranked level 1, 2, 3, and unranked the lower the number, the faster you die. Also, the first rift popping up in a zone, that's the alpha right now. The alpha on Yongjong Island is camping out at a church in northern Unsayori. It's unranked, but don't let that fool you. Rifts are unstable, so stay the hell away. Your job is patrolling Unamuri on the east side. Scan for new rifts, eliminate on sight. A groan of annoyance erupted from the team. Babysitting a rookie on a clearing mission. You serious right now? The staff ignored the salt and marched them to the ops zone. Once they arrived, Hyukon caught whispers of fear. This place is dangerous even from far away. They claimed the vibes were bone-chilling, like their blood was freezing. Hyukon rolled his eyes, so dramatic. Clink. Sanga tapped his leg with her blade. Signal to move. The raid was live. The staff yelled out, "We're tracking your vitals." From the offshore control room, "If you need backup, radio it in. Good luck, hunters." Upon reaching the zone, the squad circled up to strategize 2 regions. 1 week they were arguing over the plan, when Hukan's voice sliced through the noise. He pointed at his phone map. "We base at Hua Zhou Temple, we push out from there." The reaction was instant hostility. "Who's this guy? Never seen you." "You the rookie, why the temple? Since when do newbies call the shots?" Hyukon ignored the tantrums and broke it down. High ground over Unamuri buildings are intact. Free shelter, it's basic tactics. Did you guys leave your brains at home? He didn't expect that logic would trigger them this hard. "We have options. You want us to climb a mountain and get surrounded?" "No way," Hakwon scoffed, his laugh cutting through the tension like ice. "Get real. It's not like we're facing an army of 10,000. How exactly do you plan on getting surrounded on high ground?" That clapback just fueled their rage. "Listen, rookie, there is 0 chance. We're taking orders from a total noob like you." Hakwon sighed, internally. Different world. Same story, some people just refuse to use their brains. He didn't waste another second arguing. He dropped the ultimatum cold. "We split up, let them play their game. He'd play his." He figured only Han Song-ah would have his back. But then a curveball came out of nowhere. A third wheel decided to tag along. Ho Kwon side-eyed the guy stepping up next to him.
Clocking à mana signature.
That was definitely a notch above Han Song-ah's names. Kim Min-jae, if memory serves. But why was he ditching the main squad? Hakwon asked. And the answer almost made him break character. Min-jae figured since this was probably their debut run, he couldn't just let 2 rookies wander off and get wrecked basically. He was here to babysit well. At least someone had a conscience. Suddenly Hakwon's eyes locked onto the path ahead. Something was off. He swerved, instantly cutting a hard turn. Before the others could even question the move, Ho Kwon threw up a hand commanding a dead stop, and finger to his lips for total silence. He signaled he was scouting the perimeter. Min-jae crept forward for a peek, and the sight instantly stole the air from his lungs. A horde of monsters swarmed the tree line. "We're talking 50 beasts easy." Min-jae immediately whispered for a detour. Anything to avoid a head-on collision. Hakwon just held up a hand. "Cool as ice, chill. What's your ULT, your unique skill?" Min-jae stammered, and Hakwon's gaze instantly hardened. Was he seriously doubting the fight? That hesitation rubbed Hakwon the wrong way. "Hunters kill monsters, that's the gig. I won't repeat myself." Hakwon pressed. "What is your skill?" Turns out Min-jae's a pyro main. DPS skill, fireball perfect. Hakwon smirked. "Wait for my mark. Then nuke him." Min-jae froze. He wasn't ready for that kind of ruthless leadership. His brain short-circuited, trying to process Ho Kwon's logic. But before Min-jae could spiral further, Han Song-ah jumped in. "If he's taking point on the blast, what's my play?" Min-jae panicked. "Taking on 50 mobs with a 3-man squad. That's suicide, especially for rookies. We need to fall back and radio the main group." Hakwon shook his head. "Too slow. By the time they realize what's happening, will be monster chow." The logistics didn't work. Hakwon's crew pushed straight from Wazio Temple, while the others were still messing around, sweeping the coast, plus blasting a radio signal right now. Rookie mistake. Even if someone heard it, they wouldn't arrive in time. and if the monster packs scattered while they waited, they'd hunt down every other team in the area. Min-jae took a breath, ran the numbers, and realized Ho Kwon was right. Even with backup nearby, nobody's guaranteed to play hero, especially after all that drama earlier. It was up to them, just the three of them against the horde, with the odds stacked against them. A stealth ambush was the only win condition. Min-jae's fireball was the ace in the hole. Ha Kwon cut the chatter and dealt the cards. Min-jae dropped the nuke right in the center. A lock down the flanks. Nothing gets out alive. Min-jae stared stunned. It was like Ho Kwon had already run a simulation of the battle in his head. Who is this guy? He commanded the field like a veteran war general. They held their breath, waiting for the perfect split second. The monsters clustered up. Now Min-jae let it rip, no hesitation. Boom. Before the beasts could blink, a catastrophic inferno swallowed the pack. The heat was insane, vaporizing the front line instantly. But Min-jae needed a cool down for the next cast. That was Ho Kwon's cue. He had to be the shield. Min-jae pressed his palms to his forehead.
Desperately charging mana.
Suddenly Ha Kwon blurred forward, moving faster than the eye could follow, eyes dripping with bloodlust. He had one job: keep the aggro and buy the mage sometime. A flash of steel. Ha Kwon sliced through the chaos, dropping multiple rift monsters in a single, efficient breath. This is how you raid. Know your role, hold the line, until the next fireball turns the rest to ash. Right then a beast lunged for his throat. Hyukon didn't even flinch. He whipped his spear in a brutal arc, dropping a pile of monsters in one fluid motion. No way was he letting these freaks anywhere near Kim Min-jae. But holding the line solo wasn't sustainable. He needed backup fast. Hyukon barked, your turn. Instantly, the air screamed with the sound of a blade being drawn. With one lethal strike, Han Song obliterated 3 goblins at once. She let out a breath, sector clear. Now it was Kim Min-jae's show. Before her voice even faded, the air distorted with heat. Kim Min-jae was locked and loaded. With a massive fireball, Hoken threw up a hand, signaling a hard stop. Hold it. Wait till I clear the zone. You fire now, you roast me too. The second Hoken bailed. Min-jae pulled the trigger. The inferno roared forward like a feral beast, tearing through the forest toward the horde.
Atteindre explosion.
Swallowed the spot where Hyukon stood. A split second ago he'd barely rolled to safety in time. Hyukon gripped his spear, knuckles white, ready for the follow-up. 2 crispy survivors tried to scramble away in the chaos, but Hyukon wasn't doing mercy today. He cut them down instantly. Moments later the smoke drifted, revealing Hyukon planting his spear into the earth. In total victory, the ambush was a clean sweep. Every mob was dead, but man, that scrap took a chunk out of their stamina. Hyukon turned to hype up the squad. When chill ran down his spine, he spun around to find Min-jae, pointing a handgun right between his eyes, looking dead serious. Then a smirk cracked Min-jae's face. Mind stepping aside, you're blocking my shot. Hyukon froze, heart skipping a beat. He legit thought he was about to get fragged. Bang bang. Min-jae fired twice past him, dropping a hidden mob instantly. They were tagging the corpses with microchips. Once the sector was green-lit and the mission wrapped, the cleanup crew would roll in. These salvage dealers were pros at stripping magic loot from carcasses. Once the chips were active, the dealers would sweep the field. After the mission, harvesting anything with a price tag. The loot would get appraised, sold off, and the cash split up. Dealers took their cut, and the rest went to the families of fallen hunters. Who can ask the big question? Can we trust these guys? Min-jae shrugged. Safe enough, provided you signed with a legit crew beforehand. But while they chatted, a shadow lurked in the canopy, watching Hyukon like prey crash. It slammed down, spraying stone debris everywhere. Hyukon's instinct screamed. He tackled Min-jae, dragging him out of the kill zone. Just as the ground exploded, if he hadn't moved, they'd both be paced. Once they scrambled to a safe distance, Hyukon tossed Min-jae aside and squared up. Min-jae gritted his teeth seriously. They just wiped the trash mobs. And now the monster let out a bone-chilling cackle, flashing rows of jagged nightmare fangs. Hyukon's face went stone cold. This wasn't a grunt, it was the pack leader. With a piercing roar, the beast shook the entire forest. Was it summoning backup? No one knew. Hyukon cursed under his breath. Why didn't this coward charge in with its minions earlier? Taking on the trio solo now was just a death wish. But the bat leader shrieked, laughing again. Hyukin felt the mana pressure radiating off it. Okay, this thing was built different. It was leagues above the others. Hyukin shouted, "Stay back. Do not engage, I'm taking this one solo." The pressure was suffocating. If this thing caught them, it was game over. The team hesitated. Usually a boss meant a raid party. Hyukin snapped, cutting through their doubt. "I'm only saying this once, run. Don't make me repeat myself, unless you want to go home." With your heads rolling on the floor, the vivid image froze them. That was one way to make a point. Hyukin spun his spear, signaling them to scramble. Fighting alone meant he didn't have to hold back his full power. He grinned savagely, "Come get some, you oversized bat." In a blur, Hyukin collided head-on with the boss. Hansong-a stepped forward, but Min-jae grabbed her shoulder. "Don't. We'll just be in his way," and he was right. Hyukin wasn't losing. The bat leader couldn't land a single hit, not even a scratch on his gear. Realizing something terrifying, Hyukin's reflexes were god tier. If that were her, she knew she wouldn't stand a chance against that speed. Hyukin pivots with liquid grace, slipping past the alpha's claw by a single inch. But he isn't just dodging, he's biting back everywhere his spear dances. Infernal black flames erupt. The bat leader is sluggish, movements lagging to an outsider. It looks like a brawl but reality. Hyukin is treating this beast like a chew toy. Hansunga just stares, brain buffering. Is this guy seriously a rookie? Because he fights like a warlord who has survived 1,000 hells. Suddenly the boss monster lunges for a desperate strike. Hyukin lets out a dry chuckle. "Perfect. Let's see if you're worth my full power." He glides backward, boots skimming the dirt to create a gap. Then he does the unthinkable. He launches his spear straight up into the sky. Sung-ah is flabbergasted, disarming himself now. Has he lost his mind? The spear climbs high while the monster roars, closing the distance for the kill. Kim Min-jae is losing it too. In the heat of the climax, Hyukin just threw away his only defense. A heartbeat later, the monster is in his face. Hyukin doesn't flinch, he just stares it down. Stone cold. A sickening crunch echoes as the monster's head slams into the dirt. The spear he tossed seconds ago. It was a calculated orbital strike, dropping like a meteor, pierced right through the beast's neck, even impaled the creature. Thrashers showing off that terrifying boss-level HP. But it's already over. Hyukin isn't about to let a comeback mechanic happen. Before the squad can even blink, he rips the spear out and drives it back into the skull. Again and again, game over. Min-jae stands there, mouth agape. 1 second Hyukin looked cornered. The next, the boss is loot. What kind of power is that? Hyukin turns to Min-jae, cutting the silence. Be honest, is it normal for a mob like this to spawn here? Min-jae is already sweating. For a creature that isn't even a core unit, this power level is wrong. If this is a corruption zone, we're talking at least level 3. Corruption units follow a 4-tier hierarchy. But the intel said, the Alpha Corrosion Rift on Bridge East Island was unrated. There is only one answer. The rift has evolved, it's already hit level 3. They need to call this in now. Sung-ah wavers, but Hyukin shuts it down with cold logic. Think if it wasn't level 3. None of this insanity makes sense. Min-jae's face goes pale. The jump from unrated to level 3 isn't a step. It's a cliff if that's true. The survival rate for hunters here just dropped to near zero. This island is a death trap. They need to escalate this immediately. Min-jae suggests a detour, rescue the other hunters first. With Hyukin's insane DPS, maybe they can handle a level 3 zone. Hyukin gives a hard no, he isn't Superman. He can't scour the whole island saving everyone. He has limits, he lays it out. Their mission isn't search and rescue. It's search and destroy, find the rifts and close them. And in this line of work people die. It's collateral damage. Suna steps up, voice shaking, but what if it were you? Put yourself in their shoes. If you were the one bleeding out, wouldn't you feel abandoned, angry, desperate for a hero? Hyukin's eyes go completely dead. Are you trying to save people? With the mindset of a corpse. He isn't ignoring emotions. He is looking at the math. If you want to play hero, go ahead. Just don't drag me into your suicide pact. Hyukin tells them to drop the savior complex. Some deaths in this world are written in stone. If he faces that end, he won't cry about it. He'll go out swinging, but risking the mission to save a few souls, only to let the rift grow and kill everyone else. That is the real tragedy when the clock is ticking. Hesitation is the killer. If they keep carrying that emotional baggage, they won't last 5 minutes. As the sun sets, the squad finds a spot to crash. An abandoned house serving as a temporary base. The place is gutted, a ghost town, with no sign that the corrupted have infected it yet. Min-jae sweeps the perimeter clear. Nothing weird, except the dim electric lights still buzzing. It helps them track the positions of other teams. But to Hyukin, those lights aren't helpful. They're a tactical nightmare. Against trash mobs it's fine. But if a boss like that bat leader shows up, they're just a giant glowing target. This was bad, like catastrophe level bad. Hyukin whipped out his phone, thumbs flying as he blasted an urgent alert to every hunter on the network. This is Squad 8, heads up. Based on recent contact, the Alpha Corrosion Rift just evolved. We are officially looking at a level 3 threat. Kill the lights, you shine a beam out here. You're basically ringing the dinner bell for the deadliest targets in the zone. Stay dark. The mechanics were simple. Smash the core, cut the power. Without that energy feed, every monster tethered to the rift would instantly dissolve into nothingness. The entire corrupted dimension would implode. Hyukin ran the scenarios in his head. Honestly, this mission was looking deceptively straightforward. All the horror stories people spun were totally overblown. He would just play the waiting game, and the second the timing was perfect, he'd personally obliterate the rift. Total darkness swallowed the camp as night took over. Han Sung-ah was already out cold, catching some Z's. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jae had, as the squad dozed off, Yu-chan planted a proximity sensor next to them. If any beasts got too close, that thing would scream, letting him ghost the scene without stress. He blitzed through the woods, heading straight for the Alpha Rift coordinates he'd memorized from the briefing. This was supposed to be a quick midnight run, an easy clap, but then the vibe shifted hard. Something stirred in the brush ahead. Hyukin froze, eyes locked on the darkness. A creepy echoing cackle ripped through the silence. His face hardened. He knew things were going way too smooth, and just like that the situation went sideways. He lit up his fists with searing flames, ready to throw hands, but when he spun around, it wasn't the usual trash mob he expected. This thing was a titan, a monstrosity he'd never laid eyes on before. Its massive frame towered over him like a skyscraper, making that bat leader from earlier look like a toy. Meanwhile, absolute chaos broke out at the Hunter Association HQ. Squad 5's vitals just flatlined. Total blackout. Everyone was presumed Kia. The higher-ups were losing it, as more death notices flooded the screens. Damn it, what the hell is happening out there? The comms officer scrambled, screaming for backup and blasting a priority SOS to every hunter in the sector. Moments later, a new ping hit the radar. Someone was speed running straight for the Alpha Corrosion Rift's heart. The commander barked, in order to intercept that lunatic immediately. Whatever was waiting in that zone was a death sentence. But when the ID tag loaded, the room went dead silent. The hunter charging the Alpha Core was Squad 8's. Yu-chan, the rookie, was actually the first one to pinpoint the core's location. The commander screamed for a visual link to Yu-chan's HUD, a corrosion core leveling up mid-mission. Unheard of in the panic, Yu-chan was the only one reacting and diving into the danger zone. They had to watch this. The feed flickered to life on screen. Yu-chan wasn't just fighting, he was sprinting for his life, with a nightmare beast hot on his heels. The thing was cracked, way stronger than intel suggested, and its speed was terrifying. Yu-chan's breathless voice crackled over the association speakers. This monster was overpowered. Surviving this long was pure RNG. Mid-sprint, Yu-chan started raging. I thought we had scouts. How did nobody ping this disaster? He swore when he got back, he'd force-feed the corrosion core to every incompetent suit at base. The outburst made the Hunter HQ staff exchanged nervous glances. They awkwardly hit the mute button. As long as the kid was breathing, they didn't need the insults. Yu-chan did the math, trying to tank this beast with brute force suicide. He had to kite it, chip away its health, and land a critical spear shot. But this enemy was a sponge. It wasn't slowing down at all. After draining Jaw, Long Island dry to nuke the bat leader earlier, his mana tank was running on fumes. He couldn't retreat, he was trapped on the island. He needed a recharge station stat. His eyes narrowed, he spotted exactly what he needed. A gaping, pitch-black void opened up ahead like a mouth to hell. Without skipping a beat, Yu-chan yeeted himself straight into the abyss, falling He actually spun around to trash-talk the giant monster. Daring it to catch up, he had a theory to test. Suddenly Yuchan's signal vanished from the HQ screens. Reason: he just crossed into the Alpha Corrosion core. The commander's face went ghost white. This was a catastrophe inside the core. It was weirdly pristine, no rot.
Nodika Yuchan frowned.
If Tier 5 and 3 cores were messy, why was this high-level zone so spotless? Just how intense were Tier 1 and 2 supposed to be? A moment later he hit the rift's edge. The real boss was waiting. The true heavyweight champion. Yuchan wasn't a battle junkie, but if this place kept poking the bear, his patience was gonna snap. He gripped his weapon, knuckles white. The issue with his paradox flame was that it had zero chill. It scorched enemies and allies alike. That made the flame a weapon of mass destruction. Once it hit critical mass, he had to shut it down or risk nuking everything. Just then a beast lunged from the shadows. Yuchan didn't blink, he thrust his spear thwack. One shriek and the thing dropped dead. Yuchan smirked, too easy. He immediately started pulling raw mana from the air. Refueling his tank, Yuchan let out a low, triumphant chuckle. It was a wrap. Wasting zero time, he began siphoning mana from the air, dragging that raw energy straight into his core. He crunched the energy down, locking it deep inside. Pure mana ripped through his veins, stretching his channels to the breaking point. Before reinforcing them like steel, Yuchan let out a ragged breath. Faint wisps of demonic aura leaking out like steam. The payoff absolutely insane. It was way more juice than he expected. Above him the sky started fracturing like broken glass. Wukong didn't even flinch. Looks like the party's just starting. A swarm of carbon copy beasts spilled out of the void. Too bad for them, they were dead on arrival. Yuchan's body was already fully optimized. Enemies on this level, please. They were barely a warm-up. 3 of them rushed him, claws out, and with a lazy flick of his spear, he scoffed seriously. You brainless freaks still think numbers matter. In a heartbeat, explosive mana burst from Wukong, shredding the monsters into confetti. Before they could even touch the hem of his robe, he was exponentially stronger now. But compared to his prime in the other world, this was nothing, maybe 1% of his true power. Suddenly a shadow loomed behind him, an assassin-style ambush. A cold spike of danger hit his spine. When did it get within kill range? Yuchan flashed away the split second the attack landed. It was a humanoid monstrosity, with a grotesque rat's head, the corroding core pulsing inside. It was built different, but instead of fear, Yuchan smirked, wondering how many chain combos this thing could tank. Yuchan launched his spear, spinning like a buzzsaw. He threw a single thrust. The rat head blocked it dead on. Too slow, it screeched, mocking him. Big mistake. It didn't realize Wukong was throttling his speed. Yet the impact was heavy enough to fracture its weapon. Instantly Wukong locked eyes with the beast. Voice ice cold. Twin moon spear. First form pierce boom. A mana blast sent the creature flying. Yuchan didn't let up, closing the gap and pummeling it. Before its brain could even reboot. This was the Twin Moon Spear's signature. Every swing left a glowing blue trail, automatically replaying the initial strike. For additional times if you just traced the lines. It would be a basic 4-hit combo, boring. But Wukong's mastery leveled it up. Those blue trails became autonomous weapons, turning into twin, demonic boomerangs that hunted the target. Good luck dodging that against this kind of lag. Delayed assault. The rat head had zero wind condition. It left an opening and Wukong capitalized immediately. The monster was struck again. Wukong could have ended it right there. Game over. He unleashed hell. A relentless barrage, every hit echoing 4 times. Pushing the beast's body past its limit. Soon half its head was gone. Probably didn't even process its own death. But just as he wound up for the kill shot, a mysterious box materialized in his hand. He cracked it open slowly. What he saw inside froze him solid. Meanwhile, Hunter HQ was in full meltdown mode. Corrosion rifts were radiating out from Bridge, East Island, and team vitals were flat-lining left and right. The commander stared at the screens. Totally paralyzed, this scenario was way off script. Pure despair glossed over his eyes. Was this it? Unless a miracle dropped out of the sky. They were just watching a live stream of a massacre. Suddenly an operator screamed, "Sir, you gotta look at this now." Incoming transmission from the Alpha Core Zone. The commander slapped the feed to the main monitor. It was Hukin. The report was impossible. Corrosion core signal gone. Eradicated, every hostility in the area deleted. The commander's jaw hit the floor. He was looking at an actual miracle. Message sent. Hukin exhaled a long plume of steam. He gazed up. Stars were actually twinkling, and the air tasted crisp, way fresher than the toxic smog of the other world. But let's rewind the tape. 2 minutes ago, a tsunami of monsters was flooding from the rift. Hansanya was back to back with her squad, body covered in lacerations. Her grip was slipping. She could barely keep hold of her blade. Then adrenaline kicked in. She pinned her right arm against her ribs, forcing her fingers to lock around the hilt. She stared down the horde. There were way more of them now than during the day, and Hukan was still Mia behind her. Kim Min Jae's voice cracked.
Miss Han, honestly,
Are we making it out of this? I'm losing it here. He wasn't wrong to panic. Directly ahead, a wall of monsters was ready to stampede them into paste.
Han Seong-ya
Threw a desperate glance back at Kim Min Jae. The guy was running on fumes. Totally spent. Survival felt like a long shot, and she was barely holding on herself. But collapsing wasn't an option. Then, in a split second, a nightmare on legs pounced straight for her. Her instinct screamed. She ducked, low, and a violet surge of lightning blasted from her palm. That's when the adrenaline wore off. Enough for her to feel it. Her legs were dead weight number. When did that happen? To make matters worse, 3 more beasts were rushing them head-on. Min Jae was panicking, but he was frozen, absolutely tapped out. One monster was inches away from tearing out Xianyo's throat. Min Jae couldn't watch. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the gore. 5 agonizing seconds ticked by, but the scream, it never came. They cracked their eyes open to a mind-bending scene. The monsters gone, reduced to nothing but drifting dust in the wind. Fast forward to the next day. Hukan rolled up to the bridge, East Assembly Point. One look at the aftermath and his face dropped. Bodies everywhere. Did the corrosion rift go nuclear while he was gone? The crowd gaped at Hukan like he was an alien. Wait, you actually cleared a level 3 rift solo. They scanned his lean build, trying to do the math. He didn't look like the type of tank who could pull off a miracle like that alone. Hukong ignored the stares and spotted the 8th squad up ahead. Min Jae was still shook. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that Hukong had cleaned house by himself. Hukong let out a dry, cold chuckle. It wasn't a plan. It was pure instinct. His body moved before his brain even got the memo. He did it to save the squad. Plain and simple, but since the dust had settled nicely, he figured it was the perfect time to pivot, ditch the villain reputation and rebrand as the hero. Suddenly a voice cut through the noise. Park Yong-kai, a suit from the Korean Operations Company, stepped up. Hukan eyed him with zero interest. And so you're the puppet master behind this gig? Park gestured toward a waiting car. The mayor wanted a face-to-face. Hukan sighed. He'd lost track of how many times he'd been summoned. Like an errand boy, these old geezers loved barking orders. But then a thought clicked. The contract didn't say jack about a bonus for wiping out a level 3 threat. Since he was already here, it was time to negotiate the paycheck. Hukan hopped out of the car, and immediately another guy, Lee Bit-jae, was in his face with a handshake, playing the eager coordinator as they walked. Lee wouldn't shut up about how the mayor was fanboying over the meeting. Apparently when the dawn report hit, the chairman cleared his entire schedule on the spot, canceling every meeting just to chat with Hukan. A rookie soloing a level 3 rift. That kind of power hadn't been seen since the legendary first-generation hunters. Hukan raised a brow. He didn't expect to hear that. Some ancient hunter had pulled off the same flex. Back in the day inside the office, a heavy-set man waddled out, with a politician's smile. Welcome, Mayor Park Ji-hyun. Sorry to drag you out on such a gloomy day. He ushered Hukan toward his private lounge, clearly desperate to butter him up. As the boss of Incheon Bridge, East Island was a massive migraine. No fix meant no funding, and the corporate sharks were refusing to bite. Hukan sipped his coffee, mind already calculating how to bleed the mayor dry for cash. But when the mayor realized Hukan was technically still a noob on paper, he looked weirdly proud. Hukan paused, genuinely confused by the reaction. What was this guy's angle? Turned out Incheon wasn't just a city, it was the heart of the nation's economy. With the airport's elite infrastructure, massive logistics networks, were pumping through the veins of the city. 24-7+. The free economic zone had turned Songdo and Cheongna into global hotspots, drowning in so much foreign investment. It was actually a problem. With that much capital flooding the zone, everything was set up for Hyukin to have a smooth ride to the top. It sounded too good to be true. Who can cut the sales pitch short? Let's be real, you're rolling out the red carpet because you want a return on investment, right? Like, say, saving a mayor's tanking approval ratings. Before re-election, the mayor cleared his throat, forcing a crooked, practiced grin. You really did your homework. Nothing stays buried in the age of smartphones, huh? Yuchan didn't need a deep dive to know the score. The mayor's term hits its expiration date early next year, and looking at the polls, the guy was practically a walking corpse politically. Re-election was a pipe dream. A single bead of cold sweat trickled down the mayor's temple. You don't pull your punches. He chuckled nervously, but let's be real. But to operate here, don't you need the Incheon city government stamp of approval? That was the hook. Unlike some established hero, a rookie like Yuchan actually needed the mayor's green light to even step into the game. If he played his cards right, the mayor could spin this perfectly, branding himself as the visionary who unearthed a generational hunter talent. He'd latch onto you, Chan's rising star, and steal the glory for himself. The mayor kept pitching, claiming that thanks to the massive network he built, he was holding the keys to major corporate partnerships, both here and overseas. He slapped a hand over a packet of instant coffee sitting on the desk. Take this brand, for example. Their current endorsement deal is about to run out, and we could easily slap your face on every box. And apparently, that cheap gig was just the tip of the iceberg. Yuchan cut him dead, his voice quiet, but slicing through the air like a knife. I must look like a clearance rack item to you, don't I? The mayor froze, his plastic smile cracking instantly. Yuchan had been keeping tabs on the headlines lately, and he knew the world was starving for a new icon, someone to shatter the heavy atmosphere of doom. His eyes turned into cold steel. You act like you're handing me the world, but everything you're offering, I'm gonna take it all anyway. Sounds like a raw deal for me, doesn't it? Panic setting in. The mayor scrambled with more offers, promising to cherry-pick only the safest, highest-paying raids for him. But to Yuchan that sounded excruciatingly dull. He waved the guy off like a fly and stood up to bail, tossing a sarcastic remark over his shoulder. Send my congrats to that coffee model. By the way, since Yuchan just passed on the gig, that guy got to keep his job a little longer. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows of a grimy underpass, two silhouettes loomed. One voice broke the silence. Low and dangerous. Looks like the Geodong Island op was a total wash. The grunt kneeling on the concrete couldn't stop stammering apologies, but managed to squeak out that there was a silver lining to the mess. At the phrase silver lining, the boss's ears perked up. The subordinate pulled up a recovered video file, footage salvaged from the hunter qualification exam. It was crystal clear. Yuchan unleashing the paradox flame, eyes glued to the screen. A slow, sinister grin spread across the man's face. Now that is what I call a hell of a debut. It's the first of the month, and the entire nation is holding its breath for the one update that matters. The September 2025 Hunter rankings just dropped, and the public goes feral, glued to their screens for the refresh. Even Yoonsong is vibing, flashing the stats to his mom. Usually this is just background noise for the masses, but today feels different. Cut to a sterile hospital room. Kim Min-jae and his partner finally catch the live feed. The Hunter Association president, Moon Jong-tae, receives the official dossier for the September world standings. Meanwhile, fresh from a bloodbath, Lee Se-yeon smirks, wondering if that specific rookie cracked the list. Yuchan SEO, now enjoying celebrity status, rolls his eyes at the flashy graphics, scrolling past the garbage to find the only names that carry real weight. The top 10. The screen shows Lee So-yeon locking down the 10th spot, her squad camping out in a frozen hellscape. Sitting at number 5 is the lethal Kim Chae-yoon, clutching her signature golden fan blades. The third-ranked powerhouse is unveiled as the pyromaniac Choi Yoriam, literally draped in his own inferno, while the second spot goes to the tank Young Tae-sok,
Flexing en insane purple aura.
Before our main character can check the number 1 spot, a suit interrupts to tell him he's the headliner today. The official hypes him up, saying the wait is over, it's showtime. At the press conference the man offers props, pointing out his name among the 25 rising stars. On the document his handle is blazing in red, marking a record-shattering debut, while a veteran soloing a grade 3 rift is standard. For a rookie on their first run, that's legendary status. Chan Sok steps into a chaotic media storm, blinded by flashes, as reporters scream about his origins and his impossible victory. Feeling like a zoo exhibit, he kills the Q&A early, granting only one final question. A reporter pushes for his mental state and a sound bite for his future. He shuts them down cold, telling them to trash the "I'll try my best" cliches. With total ice in his veins, he declares his results will do the talking. Cut to Chan Suk riding shotgun in a chopper, hovering over the skeletal remains of what used to be Gonsol Prison. The president gazes at the nightmare below, explaining that when the rifts opened, most governments folded, but proudly notes that South Korea didn't just survive, they leveled up, gesturing to their silent stealth tech as proof. When our guy asks if this wreckage is the fate of the weak, the president nods, confirming world capitals have been wiped off the map, then invites the rookie to inspect the carnage. He reveals this is one of the Great Eight, the deadliest corrosion rifts on Earth. The Gonsel disaster hit 13 years ago, bursting from the city center with zero warning. A few lucky souls survived the blast, only to get boxed into a brand new corrosion zone. With no exit strategy, the survivors were hunted down and erased by the monsters inside. In a matter of days, a whole city was deleted from existence. He explains that, while nations look stable from the outside, the central governments are barely holding on to power. Absorbing the history lesson, Chan Sok skips the pleasantries, asking why he was really brought here. The president spills the tea. Yoon Song-yoon from the Taibik Guild paid him a visit, salty that the rookie rejected their offer. Our guy flashes back to the crushing pressure of the tank who tried to strong-arm him into joining. He shook to learn that Song-hyun had the nerve to demand his location, but the president assures him he kept his mouth shut, while warning that Taibak plays by survival of the fittest rules, and might try to jump him. Our guy reads the room, admitting that with his current stats, he'd get crushed in a raw strength contest against them. The president reads him like a book, knowing our protagonist is a lone wolf who refuses to be a guild pawn, and suggests the ultimate power move: block Taibak by boosting his own clout through taking high-tier missions directly from the president. Sensing a hustle, he bluntly asks what the president wants in exchange for this VIP treatment. The president plays it smooth, replying that he only wants the rookie to remember who had his back when it mattered. Seeing a chance to grind for reputation, he takes the deal and grabs the mission file. The job: escort a cargo shipment from Busan to Nanning City, a nightmare route crawling with corrosion zones. But checking the manifest, he's confused to see Rolexes, high-end ceramics, and a luxury sedan listed as daily necessities. The president drops a riddle, claiming these items are absolute must-haves for certain VIPs. He figured a guy like our MC would get the game, understanding the political stakes, but our boy is completely unfazed, questioning why they need luxury junk in a country where the government is barely holding it together. The president counters, arguing that even when the world is crumbling, international clout and maintaining alliances still matter. Realizing this mission is just a glorified errand to smooth over some egos, our hero unclips his seatbelt and gives a hard pass. The president panics, insisting that the Korean government sees this as a top-tier priority, but the hunter is ice cold, stating it's straight up stupid for a solo player like him to get caught in the crossfire of politics. The president's vibe shifts instantly. He sneers, suggesting that all this new fame is poisoning the rookie's brain. That's the wrong thing to say. In a total power move, our guy casually yeets the mission documents right out the open chopper door, leaving the politician stunned silent. With a final glance back, he thanks him for the lift, cool as a cucumber. Then he announces he'll just swim back to Seoul himself, leaving the president with his jaw on the floor. Without wasting another breath, he executes a flawless backflip out of the aircraft, free falling toward the ocean. The president watches, in pure disbelief at the kid's insane audacity. As a massive splash erupts below, all he can do is grumble about how uncontrollable this generation is. Cut to evening golden hour at Incheon port. A random worker is just trying to enjoy a quiet coffee break, spotting something weird in the water. Suddenly a soaked and exhausted Yoo Chan-suk drags himself onto the dock. Wheezing for air between gasps, he screams about how he actually thought he was gonna die. Out there, who do they think they are, threatening him like that? The worker, assuming the kid survived a tragedy, yells out in sympathy, caught off guard by the pity. Our MC just mumbles an awkward thanks. Now alone, he locks in on his main goal. Grinding for strength, he resolves to target the trickiest, hardest missions to speed run his way to the top. The plan becomes so overpowered and influential that suits like the mayor or the president can never push him around again. He scrolls through job postings on his phone until one catches his eye. A high-stakes rescue op on Tsushima Island, right next to a suspected Grade 2 corrosion rift, perched on a shipping container. He lets out a heavy sigh watching the sun vanish. Still wet but totally focused, he steels himself, knowing he's about to be booked and busy. The mission briefing paints a grim picture. On September 3rd, a crew of fishermen went out for jumbo shrimp season, and never came back. The ocean turned violent that day. And it wasn't just a storm. It turns out corrosion monsters from the island rift had ambushed the fleet, dragging the crew away. One traumatized survivor later confirmed the worst. The captured fishermen were still alive in captivity. So the objective is clear. Infiltrate the island, save the hostages, and nuke the rift back at his crib. Our protagonist analyzes the intel on his screen. He spots the payout, 55 million. One for the Grade 2 rift, and immediately thinks about soloing it. He gets serious doing the math. If he clears this alone, that cash is 100% his. Plus the bonuses, a heroic narrative, and the insane clout that comes with clearing a Grade 2 rift solo. It's tempting, but he acknowledges the stats. The power gap between monster grades isn't a joke. He remembers that a Grade 3 hits like a tank, but a Grade 2, that's walking natural disaster territory. And a Grade 1 requires an entire nation's military just to scratch it, weighing the odds. He admits that, while his paradox flame melted the Grade 3, a Grade 2 might need a teammate to cover his back. But he scoffs at the thought, knowing top-tier hunters won't touch a civilian rescue gig. Then a light bulb goes on. He knows exactly who is desperate enough to say yes. Cut to the boat ride. He's decked out in new combat gear. Just then Hansanga, his recruit, taps him. She asks for an ETA on the island. He glances at his phone, about 1 hour till landfall, and tells her to save her energy for the fight, but she's staring at his shoulder piece, distracted. He misses her point for a second. Then she starts geeking out, recognizing the limited edition Iron Surfer gear. She demands to know how he snagged it. He nonchalantly mentions it was a gift from his contractor. She pouts, complaining that her sponsor never hooks her up with cool stuff like that. He hits her with a smug flex, claiming he earned this VIP treatment for being the next big thing, who soloed a Grade 3 rift, while she's just a textbook rookie. He dares her to level up and get famous, if she wants the same perks. She looks salty, but that fire in her eyes proves his roast actually motivated her. Cue the flashback, showing exactly how this chaotic duo formed. Over a phone call just a few days ago. He didn't beat around the bush, straight up asking a shook Hansang to squat up. She paused, traumatized by their near-death experience in a Grade 3 rift and wondering if he was crazy for jumping into a Grade 2. He just waited dead silent. Then, he sliced through the awkwardness with one question. Don't you want to get stronger? He threw her own words right back at her, reminding her she explicitly said she wanted to learn from the best. Then came the offer. He guaranteed that, under his mentorship, her power levels wouldn't just increase, they'd skyrocket, with that insane power up dangling in front of her. He demanded a choice fueled by some deep-seated hunger. She knew she couldn't stay weak. She locked in, declaring that, if it meant gaining strength, she'd happily dive straight into hell. Back in reality, a screaming alarm instantly kills the vibe. On their boat, the crew spots bogies ahead, just as ghost ships spawn out of the thick fog. He scans the scene, instantly clocking 5 hostile vessels. Worried about the hostages, he tries to figure out a stealth approach. To avoid detection, he turns to ask for her input, only to realize she's casually floating in midair. He acts shook by her levitation, but she hits him with a smirk. "Don't tell me you can't do this." However, the silence following his question says it all. A massive smug grin plasters across her face as she savors this rare chance to finally one-up him on something. He stares, faking shock, while she laughs, teasing that it's barely even a skill. Cut to him skimming across the water, forced to carry her, whining that he hasn't unlocked water walking yet, and telling her to quit splashing. But the playful mood dies instantly as they close the gap and his instincts scream danger. He cooks up a plan on the spot, ordering her to raid the nearest ship. When she questions the move, he breaks it down. He can sense mana, and the energy signature is way heavier on the back ships. That's where the real threat is, getting the strategy. She nods and launches herself onto the deck, but the second she lands she freezes, wondering if the thing standing there is even human. From behind he barks at her to actually use her eyes and notice the glitchy, inhuman movement. Right on cue, the creature drops the disguise, revealing a nasty skeletal nightmare. She touches down on the ship's railing. Combat ready, he immediately roasts her form, warning that landing like that is a speed run to blown out knees. Then he drags her for being so loud. She probably aggroed the whole map. Just then a mob of undead, pirate-looking creeps lock their glowing eyes on the duo. His eyes flare up as he gets ready to throw down, unleashing a massive electrical nuke that clears a path effortlessly. He quickly clocks these guys as trash mobs, grade 2 total fodder. His attention shifts to his partner, curious how she's gonna handle opponents on this level. He spectates her fight, realizing she's already going 100%. Seeing how inefficient she is, he shouts her name, warning her she's burning way too much mana and gonna gas out instantly. While she fights for her life, he barks that she needs to dial it back for these scrubs. His promise to mentor her replays in her head. Frustrated by her sloppy control, she swears under her breath while he keeps yelling at her. She tries to rein in her lightning, but the live coaching doesn't stop. He's screaming that she's still going too hard, demanding she throttle it down even more. He's forcing her to learn control. Right in the heat of battle, suddenly a painful core memory unlocks the cold, dark reality of being powerless. Seeing her past self crying and helpless, she swears she'll never be a bottom feeder again. Determined to level up no matter what, his shout snaps her back to reality. Right as an undead monster lunges, focused, she funnels her energy into one surgical strike, cleaving the monster clean in two. Her inner voice confirms the grind is real, electricity arcing through her eyes as she locks in. She doubles down on her dark promise to him and herself. "I'm diving straight into hell." Total burnout hits her after that brutal sea skirmish. Surrounded by a carpet of rotting monster corpses, she balances on the rail ready to launch. He locks eyes with her, done playing hero. He flashes a lazy thumbs up. Message received. Every other boat crawling with those things has been wiped clean. She swallows her pride, realizing the situation was way too sketchy for her usual stubbornness. "Thanks for the tip," she mutters. "Most idiots wouldn't get it even if I spoon-fed him." He shoots back, but then she drops a bombshell. That's the first real advice she's ever gotten. He pauses, genuinely confused. "Seriously, what were your seniors doing back at the academy?" "Sleeping. I picked things up too fast." She shrugs. "I guess seeing a rookie speedrun their curriculum just pissed everyone off." He grins, testing the waters. "So you scared you're gonna end up stronger than me?" Eyes burning with focus, she hits him with the truth. "I've already gapped every teacher I've ever had." Her ego actually stuns him for a second, but he bounces back fast. "Cute, but don't bet on that happening with me. You're gonna be chasing my back for the rest of your life." That comment clearly struck a nerve. Touchdown on Tsushima Island. 2 Coast Guard officers salute, letting them know they're holding the line. Back at GJ Island, yeah. Keep grinding. He waves them off. Immediately his brain switches to tactical mode. Intel says the hostages are stashed at a shrine. He notes. She nods. Pulling up the map, "We've got 2 targets, Kaijin and Watatsumi." They lock in Kaijin Shrine as objective number 1. Hiking there takes a few hours easy, but he spots the glitch in the plan. Getting there is a breeze. Getting back is the nightmare. We're talking 15 hostages. That's a logistical headache. Dragging that many civilians, especially if they're banged up, is gonna be nearly impossible. Plus the air is thick with nasty mana that feels like acid on the skin, and the island is crawling with corrosion beasts. Those things won't stop hunting. To get out alive they need wheels fast. He spots a beat-up abandoned van. "You good behind the wheel please?" She scoffs of course. The van launches like a rocket, tires screaming as it tears up a massive cloud of dust. Hanging on for dear life he screams, "Good driver my ass, are the brakes just cosmetic?" He hollers, she snaps, "You don't like it you drive." Forget it, gripping the door frame. He climbs out the window, and onto the roof of the speeding van. Honestly, her GTA-style driving is still safer than his license, which expired 20 years ago. He'll stick to combat, it's go time. The protagonist locks in on the swarm of monsters. Tailing them he whips out a weighted rope, loading a stone and spinning it up to lethal velocity. Crack, the stone flies like a sniper shot, obliterating a monster's skull instantly. He yanks the rope taut, testing its strength perfect. Spear in hand he's ready to brawl. Suddenly his eyes snap wide. Another wave of uglies is flanking them. Incoming left side. He roars down to the driver's seat. "I got this," she yells back. He realizes her plan a split second too late. Wait, don't. Too late, she violently yanks the wheel, drifting the van directly into the monsters, turning them into roadkill. "Eat pavement," she cackles like a maniac, watching this chaos from the roof. He mutters, "Maybe I should have driven." The joyride hits a snag, a massive, steep staircase, cutting straight up through the forest behind them. A tidal wave of undead starts clawing its way up the steps, scratching at the van's bumper. "Get inside the gate," he commands. "I'll handle the trash behind us." She nods, eyes locked forward, and slams the pedal to the metal. The van smashes through the shrine entrance, in a shower of wood splinters. Simultaneously he backflips off the roof. He lands facing the horde. His eyes ignite with a menacing purple glow. Paradox flame activate. A vortex of purple and black energy erupts, swallowing the staircase. His plan is simple, but genius. He's not burning the monsters. He's burning the concept of friction itself. Instant chaos. The entire horde loses all traction, slipping and tumbling down the stairs, like a cartoon landslide inside the shrine. Hansang locates the objectives. The terrified fisherman bound and huddled in the dark. She inches toward one of the survivors, asking if he is hurt, but the guy is broken, stuttering absolute gibberish. Time to take charge. She flashes her badge, announcing she is from the Hunter Association, and she is their ticket out of this hellhole. Bad move, the fisherman snaps, eyes rolling back, as he unleashes a blood-curdling scream, drowning out her desperate attempts to calm him down. He screams one clear command: run. His face is twisted in pure horror, leaving her totally confused by the sudden outburst. What the heck is he looking at? She turns and her blood freezes. A towering armored samurai is right behind her, giant blade raised for the kill. Boom. Out of nowhere Yuchen Sayok intercepts the strike, his spear clashing against the blade, eyes glowing with lethal intent. He barks an order: get them to the van now. He is taking this beast down solo. The duel kicks off instantly. Chun Xiaoka parries the samurai's heavy swings, like they are nothing. The monster winds up for a massive overhead smash, but Clang Chun Sayak catches the blade on his own sword, feet planted firm, eyes locked in focus, as he withstands the creature's insane horsepower. The undead warrior pulls back for another swing, aiming to split him in two. Screech Santa comes flying in with the van, drifting straight into the monster while screaming, "Just die already!" Crunch. The grill smashes the samurai's skull, dropping it instantly. Dust settles, and Chun Zayak looks over at his chaotic driver, hanging off the side. He deadpants, "Remind me to never let you drive again." Santa just rolls her eyes, "Shut up and get in." Engines revving. He checks if the VIPs are secure. Santa nods, but then her expression shifts to pure confusion. As she stares through the windshield, ice front, she screams, but Chun Sayak is way ahead of her, already locking onto the nightmare, blocking their path. The abyss ahead is staring back. Hundreds of glowing red eyes ignite in the darkness, like a swarm of angry fireflies. An army of shrieking undead surges forward. Meanwhile Chunxia is weirdly calm, noting that the samurai from earlier was actually pretty tanky to survive a van to the face. Seeing the tidal wave of zombies approaching, he makes a call, "Toss me your sword." He demands. Santa freaks out. Giving up her blade is a massive insult to a swordsman, even with death literally seconds away. Chun-Xia shuts down her ego trip instantly. It is simple: keep your pride or save these people. Sana grits her teeth, swallows her pride, and throws the weapon to him. Duel wielding the spear and sword. He braces for impact, muttering under his breath. He hates using his ace in the hole this early. Flashback to the Giagondo rift. He is cracking open a mysterious glowing loot box. He remembers the shock inside wasn't gold, but a single armored gauntlet, pulsing with faint blue energy. The second he slipped it on, he knew this wasn't just gear, it was a game changer. The glove started sucking mana right out of the air. For a normal hunter it is a basic recharge pack, but for him it is a nuclear reactor. He ran the numbers. It is a Mona battery with a 5-minute lifespan. But for those 300 seconds, his power levels spike to match Lisa Yoon, the 10th ranked hunter in the world. Snap back to reality. Chun-Xia launches himself skyward. Weapons ready, the gauntlet flares up, pumping raw mana into his veins. He swings, unleashing an apocalyptic wave of energy that disintegrates the entire undead army. In a heartbeat inside the van, Santa's jaw hits the floor. She is paralyzed by the sheer flex. Checking the side mirror, she can't process it. Hundreds of monsters just deleted. Buff expired. Chun-Xia hops back in like nothing happened. Drive, he says. Straight to the port and don't look back. They peel out, tearing through empty streets toward Hodokatsu Port. For a split second she thinks they actually made it, but the universe has other plans. Another wave of zombies floods the street. Seriously, where are they spawning from? The van is rattling, about to die. We have to fight, she yells. Chun-Xia doesn't even blink. Keep driving, the engine's gonna blow, she screams just as a neon blue dome materializes around the chassis. Crackling with voltage, the monsters lunging at them get blasted back by the force field. Santa stares, totally stunned. Inside the bubble, the beat-up van cruises toward the harbor. She checks the rear view and sees the horde hitting an invisible wall. Her eyes go wide, she's figuring it out. There are glowing runes sketched on a passing building. Chun-Xia finally speaks up.
Protective formation géométrie.
He dumps it down for her basically. I drew a line and monsters can't cross it. Where did you learn that, she gasps. Another world, he shrugs. Not like you could learn it anyway. He smirks, clearly admiring his own genius. Annoyed by his ego, she asks the real question. Does this geometry work on everything? He admits the technique has hard limits, dropping the grim truth that it is useless against the real deal. Right on cue, the undead samurai breezes through the barrier, without a scratch, radiating a suffocating aura of power. It growls about an ancient duty to protect the sacred. A bone-deep chill instantly grips Han-Sanga, as she is crushed by the monster's overwhelming presence. Chun-Suk, however, clocks the beast's ability immediately. Mind's eye to him. The vibe is surprisingly chill, but then it hits her. The textbook definition of that legendary skill. A sixth sense that reads an opponent's every move. Before they make it, she trembles, wondering how a rotting corpse can wield a technique that even grandmasters struggle to unlock. But he stays ice cold, reassuring her there is absolutely nothing to fear, and confidently writes off legendary skills, like Mind's Eye, as cheap parlor tricks. With a sharp glint in his gaze, he announces that class is in session. He is going to show her exactly how to handle enemies like this. But the samurai scoffs with a mocking laugh, swinging his blade to flex on Chun-Sok. As Chun-Sok calmly strolls toward the flailing beast, he begins his lecture on the reality of Mind's Eye. It is not some mystical power, just a muscle memory reflex, forged in the fires of endless combat. And you can hack that reflex by projecting pure, unadulterated killing intent. You can overload the senses and force a malfunction. Senga whispers the names of other god-tier arts, like Heart Sword and the State of Selflessness, but he waves them all off as illusions, fake realms that mean absolutely nothing. He effortlessly closes the gap, striking before the creature can even twitch. With a single elegant sweep of his spear, he completely obliterates the armored samurai. As the monster crumbles into dust behind him, He calmly asserts that those fancy techniques are, in fact, nothing special. He warns that chasing enlightenment is just a trap that causes fighters to put a ceiling on their own potential. The once terrifying beast wielder of a legendary skill is now just a heap of scrap metal. Chun Suk declares he has earned the right to make such a bold claim. He paid for that right with countless sacrifices, escaping that very trap himself. Reflecting on his past life, he notes that, while the beast was tough enough to tank a Van Impact, its ultimate move was pathetic against him. She questions her own performance, feeling utterly useless by comparison. She finally admits that, while she thought she was giving 100%, his true strength far exceeded her wildest imagination. With newfound resolve, she decides she can no longer chase her goals. With a half-hearted mindset, her determination reignited, she locks eyes with Chun Sok, ready to go all in gathering her courage. She tells him she needs a favor. With fire burning in her eyes, she pleads, "Teach me for real." He plays dumb, asking if he isn't already teaching her, but she clarifies that verbal tips won't cut it. She doesn't just want advice, she wants direct hands-on guidance. She admits that compared to him, she is laughably weak, which is exactly why she is in such a rush to get stronger. Intrigued by her desperation, he simply asks for her why. Filled with rage, she declares her ultimate goal: to destroy Club Sherde with her own hands. We see an infographic explaining the Grade 8, the world's most dangerous rifts, and Club Shidai is the infamous one that swallowed the Himalayas in a single breath. To this he remarks that her goal is a bit extreme, and correctly guesses she is driven by revenge. She confirms it, stating she seeks vengeance for her family. To sweeten the deal, she clarifies she isn't asking for a handout, and slides him a business card. He is stunned to see the logo for the KY Group, a massive corporation, with a market cap of 257 trillion. Realizing she is from a dynasty, he listens as she explains she has dropped out of the succession race. He shrewdly deduces that, if she pulls off something legendary as a hunter, she might get dragged back into the family power struggle, so he asks what she truly wants from him. She makes her offer crystal clear: make me the best. In return, she will supply rare elixirs, unavailable on the black market, and promises that with her supply, he can finally reach the realm of power he desires. But he internally scoffs, knowing she couldn't possibly comprehend the god tier level he is already at. A flashback reveals his true self, the seasoned hero, who reached the absolute pinnacle of power long ago, and he reflects that his only motivation for gaining strength now is to reset the world to the way it was before the rifts tore it apart. Back in the present, he shakes her hand, sealing the deal, but stating that he has no use for rare items. Instead of elixirs, he requests something simple, and they arrange to drive to a medical center to find a doctor scribbling down intel. Chun Sok and Sang roll up on the medical team, demanding an ETA on the 7 rescued survivors. The doctor shakes his head grimly. It's bad news, starvation mode. It'll be a solid week before any of them can string a sentence together. He promises to flag them the second eyes open. The duo nods, pivoting to leave the ward and let the patients crash. But Chun Suk's zero chill. He spins on a surprised Sang dropping a bomb. Her boot camp starts right now. He drags her out to a dusty, abandoned lot. It's game time. But before the first blow lands, he hits his rookie student with a hypothetical. Could she slip past his spear if he swung it with lethal intent? She hesitates. No shot. The skill gap is massive, why even ask? But he shuts that doubt down instantly, insisting she can dodge it if she pushes her senses to the breaking point. He commands her to lock in. Really see with her eyes, listen to the wind, inhale the dust and feel the air on her skin. He steps into her personal space, intensity radiating off him, telling her to dominate every sensation. Don't fight on instinct, fight with pure, unadulterated consciousness. Got it? He quizzes. She goes for her hilt, but before her brain can fire the signal, he glitches out of existence. Gone thin air, she scrambles to track him, straining her ears for a footstep. Dead wrong, he materializes behind her, cold steel kissing her neck. Too slow in a real fight, senses trigger before thoughts. Pressing the spear tip closer, he drops the golden rule. Trust the sensory input and move, no hesitation. Thinking just adds lag. Unrefined senses are liars. That concludes the theory portion. Now for the practical exam. Suddenly the vibe shifts violently. Boom. A massive crash rocks the medical center. The cop on guard duty spins toward a rising mushroom cloud of dust. Another officer sprints over, scanning the chaos for his Mia partner. He opens his mouth to yell, but the words die in his throat. He freezes eyes wide. What the hell is that? He stammers. It's not an attack, it's Chun-Sok and Sanga, locked in a sparring session. That looks like a natural disaster. Sanga is unleashing hell, a blur of strikes.
Chun-Sok barely breaking a sweep,
Casually blocking with his spear shaft. Then he flicks her blade away like it's a toy. The shock wave from the parry craters the concrete beneath their feet. The power gap is laughable. But she's not quitting. She tightens her grip. Main character energy blazing, ready for round 2. But Chun-Sok winds up for a skull-crushing overhead smash. Pure terror floods her eyes as she realizes she is dead meat. No dodge for that. Suddenly a shout cuts through the noise. Mr. Yu. The spear freezes millimeters from her nose. It's Andre. One of the survivors is awake and asking for them. Songa gasps for air, snapping out of the combat trance, like she's waking from a nightmare already. Chun-Sok muses, lowering his weapon. Class dismissed. He nods approvingly. She finally learned to block. She just stares at him, shell-shocked. That was only lesson 1. Cut to the infirmary. Chun-Sok pulls up a chair, checking on the conscious patient. The survivor spills the tea. He remembers the cage. A truck pulling up and figure stepping out. Chun-Sok and Song are exchange looks. More hostages, they ask. Nope. The guy shakes his head. These new arrivals were chill. Way too chill, and the monsters didn't even touch them. Flashback, a hooded creep barking orders, commanding the beasts to load specific hostages onto the truck. Like cargo, it clicks for Chun-Su. That explains the low head count. Only 7 left behind. Lucky you made a run for it, he mutters. That connects the dots on why the room was so empty. He notes it was a miracle. One of them slipped away. The survivor's face goes dark. I didn't slip away. He drops the bombshell. They let us go. Sang, eyes floored. But our MC, he doesn't even blink. Knew it, he whispers. It never added up. A civilian escaping a fortress that 2 elite hunters barely cracked. Impossible unless the door was left unlocked on purpose. They've got the skills to be hunters. He jokes darkly. Sanga's blood runs cold. The rescue, it was a setup from day 1. Played like fiddles. He wonders why they'd go this far. A menacing smirk creeping across his face. He's not just mad, he's insulted. The sheer audacity of this dirty play. Sanga watches him, trying to decode that rage. Is he pissed because they underestimated him? Or is it righteous fury because they used innocent lives as worm food? Then the survivor drops one last weird detail. I saw a cat. He points out a specific detail. A tacky cat mascot dangling from the guy's waist. Suddenly a light bulb goes off in Songa's head. She instantly clocks their location. The deserted Suzum airport terminal. When he asks how she cracked the code so fast, she hits him with major side-eye. Is that phone just an accessory? She snarks. He fires back, roasting her for being a sheltered, rich girl who clearly doesn't know the struggle of data. Overage fees. She just shakes her head, wondering if he's been living under a rock, especially since the place is a ghost town. She moves to bail back to the shrine, but he blocks her path. He points down, locking eyes on their target, perched on a shattered glass roof beneath them. Peering over the edge, he spots the guy's face. It's basically metal plated with piercings. He raises an eyebrow, dryly muttering, did he attack his own face with a sewing machine? But jokes aside, he senses a dangerous aura radiating from this metal head. This is no average thug. The pierced stranger tilts his head back, grinning with pure condescension. Well, hello there, brats. He calls out. He drops his name. Kim Ji-hoon, smirking up at Chun Soo-yuk and Sang Ah. He takes credit for dragging them here in one piece, leaving our duo completely baffled. But he's about to give them a live demo of the alternative. He drags out a battered, unconscious captive from the shadows. With a terrifyingly casual flick of his wrist, he tosses the body straight into the swirling chaos of the erosion zone. Sanga gasps, eyes wide with horror. He's feeding people to the anomaly. Agonized screams rip through the air, reminding her of the grim reality. They are trapped here until the core is obliterated. But the screams cut short as the victim begins a gruesome transformation. flesh warps and twists, hardening into a monstrous cyborg-like nightmare. This is what Ji-hoon calls an erosion member, but the villain just scoffs, sneering that a weak host only creates trash. Totally unimpressed, he delivers a lazy kick to the abomination boom. The monster vaporizes instantly. The sheer cruelty and power leaves Sang-a paralyzed. But Chun Soo-yuk keeps his cool, demanding answers. You planning to turn us into monsters? To why? Ji-hoon explains that regular folks are just cannon fodder, too weak for his grand design. He needs high-quality ingredients. His goal is to use elite hostages, to forge unstoppable erosion warriors. The horrifying truth sinks in. This isn't a ransom gig. They aren't bargaining chips. They are raw biological material. They are building an army of monsters. From kidnapped victims, Ji-hoon smirks, adding a layer of condescension, claiming he couldn't care less about explaining himself. But the elders insisted on the monologue. He puffs out his chest, introducing his crew, the heirs of Dangun, a fanatical group obsessed with one thing: establishing absolute Korean dominance. They want power so overwhelming, no nation dares look them in the eye. To prove his point, he stomps the ground, sending abandoned cars flying like toys. With a manic, unhinged grin, he screams about building a supreme empire. Then he makes his move. He roundhouse kicks a falling sedan, launching it like a missile straight at our duo. As 2 tons of steel hurtle toward his face, our guy just lets out a frustrated sigh. Time seems to freeze on the broken tarmac. In a blur, he slices the car cleanly in half with his spear. He stares Ji-hoon down, arguing that their country is already a powerhouse. That hits a nerve. Ji-hoon screeches it's not enough, in charges, vowing to forge a nation that demands fear. A nation no one can disrespect. Chun Soo-yuk bends his knees, ready to dance. Ji-hoon goes airborne, unleashing a devastating kick. While roaring his dream of an untouchable global superpower, he starts ranting about history, centuries of paying tribute, forced humility, and the ultimate shame of having their sovereignty stolen by invaders. Meanwhile, Chun Soo-yuk is clinically analyzing the guy's moves. Lightning-fast taekwondo fueled by centuries of grudge. We will make them pay. Ji-hoon bellows. Chun Soo-yuk springs backward instantly, barely dodging the lethal strike. Landing safely, he has to admit, the guy's twisted logic actually holds some water.
Sans watch.
Terrified as our hero cuts through the rhetoric. You don't care about saving the world, do you? He accuses.
Ji-hoon lefts guilty.
When our guy brings up the innocent lives at stake, Ji-hoon claims Chun Soo is too small-minded to see the grand vision. But suddenly our MC looks interested.
Ji-hoon drops a bombshell.
His group has figured out how to control the erosion zones. This stops our guy cold. That changes the entire game. If that's true, the implications are massive. No more hunters dying in vain. He decides to play along, feigning interest in joining forces, and asking about the extent of their control, even offering to trade Sang-a to seal the deal. Sang-a looks betrayed, but Ji-hoon narrows his eyes, arrogantly asking why he should spill his secrets. But the moment Ji-hoon claims they have sufficient control, Chun Soo-yuk catches the slip. So not full control then. He smirks, calling the bluff. He labels Ji-hoon a fraud. All big talk, zero proof. Just like every other self-righteous dirtbag. With a noble cause, the truth stings. Ji-hoon snaps, screaming at him to shut his mouth. Chon-suk barely weaves past a kick that would have cratered the pavement. Panting heavily, he realizes he might have trolled the guy a little too hard. That trash talk was just a stall tactic anyway. He needs to refill his mana tank, and fast. Problem is, his reserves are running on fumes, nowhere near enough to fuel the paradoxical phantasm. Flame friction of war is his only play right now. But before he can make a move, Ji-hoon comes barreling in like a freight train. Suddenly the enemy freezes. Out of nowhere, Han Sang-a steps up to the plate. Boom. She unleashes a shock wave of emerald energy. Ji-hoon flinches, clearly shocked. She isn't trembling in a corner somewhere. He sneers, asking the pretty girl if she suddenly grew a spine. Chun-sok yells for her to stay back, but she's not hearing it. She calls it like she sees it. His spare gauntlets are empty. She knows he's tapped out on mana. Chon-suk is actually impressed. She's sharp, clutching a potion vial. She demands a timeline for his recovery. Give me 5 minutes, he says. Without hesitating, she slams the mana-restoring elixir straight into her own veins. Glass shatters on the floor, crackling with golden lightning. She smirks and tells him, "I got this." Chonsok panics. How many of those did she purify? It's a one-way ticket to mana overload. But she insists there's no other choice. He swallows his worry and nods. 5 minutes on the clock. Then it's game over for the bad guy. He can't lose, she tells herself, summoning a literal hurricane. A massive bolt of lightning rips through the sky. Ji-hun braces against the pressure, teeth grinding, telling sweetheart to calm down. She guides that lightning bolt like a missile, aiming right for his head. He warns he might accidentally kill her, but the strike lands dead center. A blinding explosion swallows Kim Ji-hun whole. Sanga watches, praying that was enough to put him down. Smoke clears and the guy walks out, wiping a tiny drop of blood from his lip. "That's it?" he asks, genuinely confused, hovering midair like a god. Ji-hun laughs. He calls her ultimate move a tickle. Then snap, he delivers a devastating kick that launches her across the battlefield. She's out cold, blood spilling, hurtling toward the concrete, until a strong hand snatches her out of the air. Ji-hun looks over to see Yoon Chonsok, cradling the unconscious girl. The look in Chonsok's eyes is pure ice. Ready to die, Ji-hun freezes. Was he sandbagging this whole time? Gently laying Sanga down, Chonsok asks why he looks so shook. It's simple mechanics, really. His recovery works just like Ji-hun's piercings. Chonsok stares him down, cold as steel. Only an idiot would have missed the signs. Ji-hun was burning through mana so fast, he couldn't control the runoff. All that purified energy was just leaking into the atmosphere. Chonsok cracks a terrifying smile. Thanks for the donation. He siphoned every drop of that wasted mana to fuel his paradoxical phantasm flame. Ji-hun starts screaming this shouldn't be possible. There's no technique for that. He shrieks. Chonsok just winds up for the kill shot. Don't worry about the details. Chonsok says you'll be dead in a second anyway.